This video demonstrates and explains the straight dough mixing method as applied to mixing a yeast raised bread dough. The first step in mixing a yeast raised bread dough using the straight dough mixing method is to figure out which mixer to use. In the bake shop, we have 3 mixers students typically use. They are a 20-quart mixer, a 10-quart mixer, and a 5-quart mixer. The 5-quart, 10-quart, and 20-quart designations refer to the size of the bowl. This is a 20-quart bowl, this is a 10-quart bowl, this is a 5-quart bowl. To decide which bowl that your dough should be properly mixed in is simple. The maximum amount of weight of a yeast-raised bread dough that you want to put into a 20-quart bowl is 10 pounds. So take the quantity of the bowl in quarts, divide it in half, and that's the maximum amount of weight of a heavy yeast-raised bread dough you want to put into that machine. For a 10-quart bowl, the maximum weight of a heavy yeast-raised bread dough you want to put into this bowl is 5 pounds, and for a 5-quart bowl, the maximum weight of a heavy yeast-raised bread dough you want to put into this bowl is 2.5 pounds. The total weight of the wet and dry ingredients in the hard roll dough formula is 2 pounds 5 ounces, which is a little bit less than the 2.5 pounds we could probably mix in a 5-quart mixing bowl. However, when you're working with a heavy yeast-raised bread dough, opting for a slightly bigger mixer is a better choice. That's why we've gone with the 10-quart mixer instead of the 5-quart. With the wet and dry ingredients in the mixing bowl, let's get the mixer set up. First thing we want to do is raise the bowl, close the cage, put the bowl locks on either side, and now let's talk about mixing time for the dough. The straight dough mixing method for this dough will call for a total mix time of 10 minutes, broken down into a 2-minute segment and then an 8-minute segment. We're going to mix the dough on 2 minutes at first speed so that the dough can come together into what we call a shaggy mass. After we've gotten to that stage, we're going to mix the dough for an additional 8 or so minutes on second speed until we have proper gluten development in the dough. We've mixed the dough for about 2 minutes. We've achieved what's known as the shaggy mass stage. Let's take a closer look at it. It looks like a large mass of dough, and the other way you can tell that you've reached the shaggy mass stage is if looking at the dough in the bowl as it mixes, if you were to move it to second speed, would the ingredients in the bowl fly out of the mixer? If they would stay in the mixer, you're pretty sure you're at the shaggy mass stage. Let's continue mixing on second speed for the full 10 minutes of total mix time. Mixing any yeast-raised bread dough is important for 2 primary reasons. First, we want to take all the ingredients, all the component parts of that dough, and form them into a smooth, uniform blend, so there aren't pockets of salt or pockets of sugar or pockets of yeast, but rather we have a smooth, uniform dough. The most important reason we mix, however, is to develop gluten in the dough. A mix can go for the appropriate amount of time, in this case 10 minutes, but we need to make sure that gluten has been properly developed. In order to do that, we do what's known as a window test or a stretch test. Allow me to demonstrate. Alright, our dough has mixed for the full 10 minutes, and we want to make sure that the dough is properly mixed. We're going to look at 2 things. First is the texture of the dough itself. We're looking for a smooth, moist, and elastic dough. And you can tell by looking at this, it is quite smooth. It does have a little bit of a tacky feel to it, so it's kind of moist, and it is definitely elastic. The next thing we want to do is complete what's known as a window or a stretch test. The purpose of this test is to see how well developed the gluten network in the dough is. To do that, we're simply going to very gently stretch the dough, turn it, stretch it, and turn it. The purpose is to see how thin we can get that dough. And carefully stretch it from the center. Turn, stretch, stretch, turn. The dough is going to tear for 2 reasons. First, I'm being way too rough with it, in which case it just rips. And the second is that there is not proper gluten development. But if I can keep stretching this dough to the point where it gets very thin, almost transparent, and to the point where I can see my fingerprints through the dough, then I know we've got very good gluten development in the dough. This dough has excellent gluten development. You can see the gluten network right there. But let's just see how thin we can actually get this. And that's pretty thin. Let's see if we can see my fingerprints through there. Alright, so we've mixed the dough for the full 10 minutes. We've done the window or the stretch test. We've got great gluten development. I think we're off to a great start with this yeast raised bread dough. The last step in completing the straight dough mixing method is taking the dough from the bowl, forming it into a smooth, round shape, placing it into a slightly greased bowl, covering it and letting it bulb ferment. So let's talk about rounding that dough. Several ways to do this, simple of which may be just to take the dough, fold it in half, take it from the side, fold it down to the bottom again, turn it, fold it to the bottom, turn it, fold it to the bottom, turn it, fold it to the bottom, so that we get almost like a beggar's purse look on the bottom. Use your hand, pinch that together. We've got a nice smooth surface here. Take a little bit of pan spray, lightly spray a bowl, pick the dough up from the bottom, place it in the center, and cover that bowl with plastic wrap. Spraying the bowl allows the dough to rise smoothly and evenly without getting caught on anything that's in the bowl that might tear or shred the dough.